I often think about the drowning cemetery, the image of a herd of Centrosaurus, all meeting their end together in one sudden, terrible moment. It stays with me. A flash flood transformed a familiar floodplain into a deadly mud trap. The result was a mass drowning, a tragic scene frozen in time and then, millions of years later, revealed again as fossils. In this video, I want to share some of the most striking dinosaur fossils I've encountered. These aren't just bones. They're stories of creatures that died under violent, mysterious, and sometimes absolutely shocking circumstances. Let's start with the Centrosaurus in that drowning cemetery. I imagine them moving together as they always did, a mass of prehistoric life with purpose. The place where it happened became known as the drowning cemetery, and the Centrosaurus were the tragic protagonists. They were medium-sized herbivores that lived during the late Cretaceous period, about 76 million years ago. With its large nasal horn and impressive ornamented frill, the Centrosaurus was both a symbol of power and a possible victim of its own evolution. They made about 6 meters in length and weighed more than 2 tons, and they were adapted to life in groups. It was precisely this group life that sealed the fate of thousands of them on that fateful day. The site where their bones were discovered today, in southern Alberta, Canada, was the stage for one of the largest fossil concentrations ever recorded. The area, once a floodplain near an ancient river, became the collective grave of an entire herd. A tragedy preserved in time. The rain fell in a torrential downpour. Within hours, the water transformed a familiar and safe territory into chaos. Mud, raging currents, and despair. The ground, saturated and unstable, began to collapse. The Centrosaurus, caught by surprise, tried to flee, but the mass escape only generated more destruction. Those at the front were the first to fall. Many were trampled by their panicked companions. Others were swept away by the force of the flood, dragged into lower areas where they were buried alive by the mud that consumed everything. Some, younger or already weakened, simply could not keep pace with the herd. Death was swift for some, slow and agonizing for others. What remained was a tangled mass of bodies compressed under the weight of tons of flesh, bone, and earth. And then, with time, silence. Decomposition gave way to fossilization. Horror turned into geological record. Millions of years later, humans would excavate that soil with brushes, spatulas, and a patience that rivaled the passage of time itself. Paleontologists would reveal to the world an unprecedented discovery. More than 10,000 bones belonging to a single species in a single location. The drowning cemetery had been revealed. Scientists' interpretation was immediate and brutal. This was not the result of deaths occurring over generations. This was a single event, a sudden catastrophe that wiped out an entire herd. Confirmation came from the uniformity of the fossils, the lack of erosion on the bones, and the absence of signs of predation. Everything there screamed urgency, desperation, tragedy. Then there's the story of the Triceratops with an infected bite. Imagine an animal more than 9 meters long, weighing between 6 and 12 tons, slowly walking across the plains of a lost world. Its name, Triceratops horridus. With 3 sharp horns on its face and a protective bony frill rising behind the skull, this giant herbivore was one of the last dinosaurs to inhabit the Earth before the mass extinction event approximately 66 million years ago. But among the many fossils discovered, one tells a particularly dark story marked by pain, survival, and above all, violence. In this specific fossil, what caught paleontologists' attention was not just a well-preserved skull. What stood out were perforations located in vulnerable areas of the facial bone. Perforations that, when analyzed, revealed a specific pattern, a curvature, a spacing between the marks, a depth compatible with only one living creature of that time, Tyrannosaurus rex. The powerful jaws of this predator could exert a force of more than 5 tons, enough to crush bone and tear away entire chunks of flesh. But what makes this case so intriguing is that the Triceratops did not die at the moment of the attack. Quite the opposite. The bone surrounding the perforations shows clear signs of irregular growth, a biological reaction to the body's attempt to heal, an inflamed type of bone callus, typical of infection. The Triceratops survived. This discovery changes the traditional narrative of the late Cretaceous food chain. Instead of a simple predation scene, we are faced with a more complex drama. The attack, survival, infection, continuous pain, and finally a slow death. The skull becomes a witness not only to a brutal fight, but also to the resilience of a wounded animal struggling to carry on. The infection that settled into the perforations of the skull was severe. The disorganized bone growth indicates that the body reacted however it could. This inflammatory response is a clear sign that it lived for several weeks after the attack, perhaps even months. Every movement of the jaw, every bite of leaves or branches caused pain. Finally, there's the Protoeratops versus Velociraptor. In the heart of the Gobi Desert, one of the most inhospitable and arid regions on the planet, lies one of the most dramatic testimonies of the age of dinosaurs. A moment frozen more than 70 million years ago, where life and death became intertwined in a fierce dance. This is the fossil known as the fighting dinosaurs, Protoeratops versus Velociraptor. 2 names, 2 destinies sealed in a confrontation as brutal as it was intimate. On one side, Protoeratops, a medium-sized herbivore with a large bony frill and a beak sharp as scissors. On the other, I've always been fascinated by the instant a life ends, that precise moment of transition. There's a fossil that captures that perfectly. A Velociraptor, leg raised, driving its killing claw into the neck of a Protoceratops. In response, the herbivore bites down hard on the attacker's arm. Both immobilized, locked in a final act of struggle. There was no victor, only mutual death. The sand, rich in minerals, compacted over time, preserving not only the bones, but their positions relative to each other. Limbs, teeth, claws, everything frozen, as if time itself paused to record nature's raw ferocity. Now let's travel to what we know as Montana, approximately 66 million years ago. One of the most brutal confrontations of the Cretaceous period reached its end. Amid a world dominated by colossal reptiles, the sound of death echoed. The supreme predator, Tyrannosaurus rex, met its end in a shocking way. This particular fossil, nicknamed Pex rex, tells a story unlike any other. Scientists analyzing the fossilized skeleton discovered a massive puncture wound in the neck, precisely where vital arteries, the trachea, and crucial muscles responsible for supporting the head were located. It was as if someone had driven a spear with devastating force straight into the animal's vital systems. But this spear wasn't metal. It was bone, the horn of a Triceratops. I can almost picture the scene. A close-quarters confrontation, a decisive strike, a hunting attempt gone wrong. The greatest terrestrial predator became the prey. Bone fragments around the puncture indicate the impact was deep, piercing soft tissues, blood vessels, and likely perforating the trachea. There were no signs of healing, meaning the blow was fatal, or at least the direct cause of death. This fossil was discovered in 1997 by a geologist named Bob Harmon and nicknamed Peck's Rex in honor of Lewis Peck, the owner of the ranch where it was found. It's a silent message written into every fracture, every shattered bone. Then there are the mass group deaths. In many parts of the world, paleontologists have unearthed dinosaur cemeteries, skeletons tangled as if the animals died trying to escape. And that's exactly what happened. They tried to flee, to survive, but there was no time. Sandstorms, violent floods, mudslides, sudden natural forces that transformed the landscape in the blink of an eye. Those who lived there were swallowed alive by the very environment they once called home. These sites reveal moments of prehistoric life frozen in time, not in isolation, but in community. Entire dinosaur families, from juveniles to adults, preserved side by side, their deaths bearing witness to collective panic. These weren't natural deaths, isolated or spread out over time, but sudden, catastrophic moments when nature turned against its own. In China's Yixian Formation, entire groups of Psittacosaurus, small bipedal herbivores, have been found piled together in layers of volcanic sediment, buried alive by ash from a sudden eruption. In Mongolia, sandstorms engulfed dinosaurs mid-motion, their poses revealing final attempts to escape. In Madagascar, a mudslide captured an entire group of Majungasaurus, crushed, immobilized, preserved. Discoveries in North America, like the Morrison Formation, show Diplodocus and other sauropods grouped in patterns suggesting entire herds were wiped out by sudden floods. These sites show us how dinosaurs lived, how they organized into herds, families, and social structures, and how even in groups they were vulnerable to the power of nature. Consider the Pacorinosaurus crushed in a stampede. In the petrified silence of time, a tragedy unfolded beneath the darkened skies of ancient North America. These bones belonged to Pacorinosaurus, a gregarious herbivore whose head was adorned with thick bony bosses. But it's not the animal's appearance that draws attention, but the way it died. Paleontologists excavating a vast rock formation in Alberta encountered a macabre scene. Dozens of Pacorinosaurus fossils stacked atop one another, bones crushed and fractured. The pattern of fractures on those Patrinosaurus skeletons, it wasn't a sudden fall, not a predator attack. It was something far more chaotic. A stampede. I can almost see it in my mind's eye, that terrifying scene. A herd in a frenzy, running blindly, maybe startled by a wildfire or a sudden storm. The compression marks tell the story. Animals colliding, desperate to flee, some falling, others stumbling over the bodies. Dozens of tons of flesh and bone becoming an instrument of death. Among the fossils, they found juveniles, adults, even hatchlings. A family, a social unit, wiped out together. Patrinosaurus, imposing as it was was a peaceful herbivore. Evidence suggests they cared for their young, maybe protecting them in defensive circles, like elephants today. But no defense can withstand panic, and not all of them died immediately. Some fossils show healed fractures, meaning some individuals survived for a time, even with broken bones. Others, though, show signs of acute, lethal trauma. The microfractures reveal the force didn't come from above, like a landslide, but from all directions. Bodies compressed within a living mass of desperation. Paleontologists call it herd death, a natural catastrophe that, ironically, preserves fossils so well. Then there's the Carnotaurus with the fractured jaw. Imagine a feared predator, a force of nature roaming what's now South America, over 70 million years ago. Carnotaurus, meat-eating bull, one of the largest, most agile theropods of its time. But even kings have weaknesses, and sometimes the silent fossil tells a story beyond strength and ferocity. A story of pain, struggle, maybe even silent defeat. This particular Carnotaurus fossil revealed a mystery hidden in its jaw, a significant, unhealed fracture. The break was clear, deep, compromising the entire side of its mouth, affecting its ability to hunt, to feed, to survive. Paleontologists immediately saw the severity. Not a superficial fracture, but a severe rupture in the lower jawbone, causing extreme pain, making even basic movements difficult. The absence of healing was the first clue. When an animal survives a fracture, the bone shows evidence of the healing process. New bone tissue, calluses, structural adjustments. But in this fossil, nothing. The fracture was raw, as if it had occurred just days, maybe hours, before death. This led to a grim hypothesis. The Carnotaurus died shortly after the injury. And if that's true, the cause of death may have been even more cruel: starvation. Unable to fully open its jaw, unable to apply the force to seize and kill prey, the injured Carnotaurus may have wasted away. A predator once free and relentless, reduced to a weakened body, succumbing to its condition. Imagine the suffering. Every attempt to bite, every movement of the jaw sending waves of pain through its body. Each step slower, more hesitant. A predator transformed into a shadow, pushed out of territorial disputes, abandoned by prey, maybe even by its own kind. And then there's the Tyrannosaurus rex, with bones bitten by another Tyrannosaurus rex. In a landscape fossilized over 66 million years ago, a giant once rested, a colossal predator that reigned as the supreme sovereign of the Cretaceous, Tyrannosaurus rex. Tyrant Lizard King. No title could more accurately describe its presence. But even kings face challenges. A singular fossil, discovered in Montana, revealed a fascinating, unprecedented detail about this predator's life. Bite marks on its own bones, made by another Tyrannosaurus rex. This discovery is both surprising and unsettling. It sheds light on Tyrannosaurus rex behavior in ways we could previously only imagine. The tooth marks aren't from a smaller, opportunistic predator. No, they match the robust, widely spaced, deeply penetrating dentition of another tyrannosaur. This forces us to reconsider everything. Are we looking at cannibalism? A fierce territorial dispute? Or the remains of a meal where opportunity outweighed social restraint? To understand the significance, we have to understand who Tyrannosaurus rex was. 13 meters long, nearly 4 meters tall at the hips, with a jaw capable of exerting up to 6 tons of pres. Tyrannosaurus rex wasn't just a predator. It was a bone crusher. Its banana-shaped teeth could crush not only the teeth of Tyrannosaurus rex, they've left their signatures on fossil remains found in Montana. I find myself thinking about that a lot. These aren't just any marks. They're bite marks on the skull, jaw, arms, and legs of the specimen. The clarity is astounding. You can see the moment when another tyrannosaur pressed its teeth against the bone, tearing away flesh and fragmenting the carcass. For paleontologists, it's a time capsule, a window into behavior that textbooks alone just can't capture. But what does it mean? Was Tyrannosaurus rex eating its own kind? And if so, why? The most widely accepted idea is opportunistic cannibalism. In the wild environments of the late Cretaceous, food scarcity could have driven even the largest predators to feed on the bodies of their dead. It's not unheard of, even today. Crocodiles, sharks, and even bears may practice cannibalism when they need to. Why would it have been any different 66 million years ago? There's another possibility too. A fight between two Tyrannosaurus rex individuals. Maybe over territory, mating rights, or dominance over a kill. The victor may have consumed parts of the defeated rival. Wolves, for example, sometimes kill members of rival packs and feed on them. In this light, Tyrannosaurus rex isn't just a killing machine. It becomes an animal with complex social behaviors, even if those behaviors were extreme.